we have no schedule for this. Welcome to the international headquarters of Indivisible. You see the beautiful map behind us. I have in the room here a subset of Indivisible who were able to force into this room from the field team, the policy team, and Leah and I don't know what we do. But why don't we
just cheer everyone else on
exactly. So I'm Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible. Let's do intros real quick.
I'm Leah Greenberg. I'm also co-executive director.
In the front.
I'm Kenora. I'm one of the organizing managers.
I'm Sarah. I'm also an organizing manager.
I'm Isaac Bloom. I'm the organizing director for Indivisible.
Hey, I'm Angel Padilla, policy director at Indivisible.
Chad Bolt, policy manager on the policy team at Indivisible.
Excellent. Right. So that's what we have in the room. There are a ton of people out who are jealously looking at us because they're not on that. We see through the glass. Look, we're here because something huge happened last night. After more than 6 months of effort, after more than 6 years of attempts to repeal the Affordable Care Act, after this being made the number one legislative priority of a unified conservative government, the likes of which we haven't seen in over a decade, Republicans in the Senate just announced defeat of Trump Care. That's worth celebrating. To quote a failed presidential contender, please clap. But so this isn't on accident. We're going to hear from the team in a sec about what exactly did just happen, so that the policy team will fill us in. We're going to hear from the field team some of what made this happen. But just at a very high level overview, this was a brilliant display of constituent power. The conservatives who control government right now desperately wanted to get this done. They had promised to get it done. Back in December, word on the street here in D.C. was, hey, this might happen on the first day of Trump's presidency. They might pass this right away. They didn't. It got delayed. And the reason why that happened was because people came out in every single community in the country. And when I say every single community, I'm looking at this group behind us. So we just got literally the newest Indivisible group. This is coming to us live. We're breaking news. The newest Indivisible group to register is Seacoast Huddle in Newcastle, New Hampshire. And I'm going to place this guy. Seacoast Huddle. Here, Chad, do you want to place this? Right there.
Tell us where Seacoast Huddle.
Well, everybody knows it's in this region.
Everybody loves that dinner.
Yeah. Good time. Yeah, that is excellent. I'm sure that's what got us there. It was Seacoast Huddle, along with the 6,000 other groups that made this happen. Because, yes, you have a role as a voter. Yes, that is a way to choose who is actually making the laws. But that's not the extent of constituent power. There is more. And what we saw last night is that you can, through taking control of your home turf, affect what is politically possible at the national level. So I'm going to stop there. Leah, do you have any other thoughts before we go to the team?
I'm just going to add, this fight's not over.
Oh, good point.
Until we take back power, we will never be 100% safe from Trump Care, but we have organized, we have changed what is politically possible, and we scored an enormous victory last night. And everybody who marched, everybody who called, everybody who went to a town hall or held their own event or staged a rally outside of a district office, you did this. This is your day. Give yourself a big pat on the back.
Okay, so maybe why don't we start with hearing a little bit about what exactly did happen.
Okay.
So this is Paul Angel Padilla, our policy director, and Chad, our policy manager, who have been tweeting up a storm for the past 2 weeks. You can follow them both on Twitter. We can put that in the comments. They're going to inform.
Oh wait, you should do this.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Oh right. So they're gonna talk a little bit about what exactly. Oh right. So Chad and Angel are going to talk a little bit about what happened just now. So there was a 2 a.m. vote, but that was the end. That was the last of 3 bills that failed. Why don't you walk through exactly what happened?
Sure. I just want to quickly take a step back, though, just to remind people that this was something that was 6 months, 7 months into the making, and no one thought that the House was in play back in January and February, and it was only came into play because of all the groups and all the action in those town halls and during the February recess. Again, this was supposed to sail right through the House, and it didn't because of all the work that people did. And now we stopped it in the Senate, and as Ezra was saying, we stopped 3 different repeal bills this week. We had that terrible motion to proceed on Tuesday, but then we had 3 separate bills. The first one, which was the Trump Care bill that would have taken healthcare away from 22 million. Then we had the full repeal, which would have taken healthcare from 32 million people. And then finally, last night, which Chad is going to go into in just a second, we stopped the skinny repeal, which would have taken away healthcare from 16 million people. All of these incredibly terrible. All of these would have devastated the health insurance markets. And because of all the activism over the last 6 months, we stopped this. Again, this isn't over, as Leah was saying. It's not going to be entirely over until we take back power. But this is an incredible victory that we have to really recognize. And I'll now turn it over to Chad.
Thanks, Angel. So what was the skinny repeal bill? It all came about very late in the game. And basically the strategy here was put together the lowest common denominator bill, the barest minimum that they could get 50 senators to agree to. So they cobbled it together. It was repeal of the individual mandate. It was repeal of the employer mandate, repeal of the medical device tax at first, a couple other things, and then it expanded. The skinny bill got fatter. And all of a sudden they threw in provisions that would have hurt people with pre-existing conditions. They threw in a tax break for the wealthy for good measure. But the thing is, and yes, absolutely, defunding of Planned Parenthood, of course, the old standby. But what happened? McConnell called it up for a vote, hoping he had the 50 votes, but I'm not sure he actually ever really knew if he would. I mean, obviously he didn't in the end. So the vote's being held open. Everybody's not sure what's going on. They had taken a previous procedural vote. Everybody's just kind of milling about the Senate floor. Everybody's trying to read as much into the tea leaves as they can in terms of like, oh my gosh, like McCain's talking to Cornyn, he's talking to Feinstein, like what's going on? And in the end, thanks to your constituent power, they came up short. Murkowski from Alaska, Collins from Maine, and of course McCain from Arizona ended up joining all of the Democrats in opposing the skinny repeal. It was a failed policy that actually many of even the senators who supported it didn't want to see it become law in the end. They just wanted it to move it to the next phase. But of course, there was no guarantee that that's what would have happened. So,
where were you and Angel when this vote went down?
Angel and I were here at Indivisible headquarters. So it turns out they don't have the AC on overnight. It was getting a little muggy in here, but
we were here till watching this 2 a.m. to in the morning watching this. But then we also heard just today that there were a lot of Indivisible groups, people all over the country that were also up at the same time watching because it literally would have affected so many lives around the country.
Yeah, I mean, I started to say this was a failed policy. 16 million people without insurance. It would have hurt people with pre-existing conditions. More tax breaks for the rich. I mean, it's an amazing thing that it didn't pass. But I can't say that it was expected. I mean, the outcome was unknown right up until the last minute.
So why don't we're going to go in, so on Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to do another Facebook Live. We're going to talk about what's next. Trump care is not dead. Oh, got to scoot in. Trump care is not dead entirely. This is a huge victory. It may be dead. It remains to be seen. So we're going to talk more Monday night about the policy specifics, but today's a day for recognizing what's been accomplished. So I'm going to pass it over to organizing team. So y'all take a front seat and tell us what's happening.
Great. Yeah, we're really excited to brag a little bit about all the incredible work that's been happening out there. So it's not a coincidence that Collins and Murkowski have been holding steadfast, saying no to Trump care for the last week or so. We've seen incredible work happening all across the country, but some shout outs to in Alaska. There have been daily actions. It's been happening really just about every day, all across the state, at a lot of Murkowski's offices, and a lot of those groups who are in some areas that you could only get to in office by plane or by a really long trip. They've been connecting with other groups who have been sharing stories, so it's coming from all across the state. Similarly, in Maine, there have been 2 really big days of action where every single office has been covered, and Indivisible folks have driven 4 hours to hit up the office in Caribou there. So shout out to them for doing that, not just once, but twice. Pretty spectacular. And then in other states, in Charlotte, Indivisible Charlotte is on their 20th day of protest outside of, shout out to Indivisible Charlotte. They're going strong outside of Tillis's office, so making a big impact there. In New York, in California, they've been making sure that their Democratic senators are holding strong. There have been big coordinated actions in New York, all across the state, big coordinated days of action. And also, thank you to everyone who hopped on our new calling tool. We had over 1,000 people hopped on that over the last 2 days. Over 100,000 attempts to constituents were made. We talked to thousands of constituents in key states. So just great work, and thanks to everyone who hopped on that across the country. And more highlights from Kenora.
Yeah, I really wish this was going to be an all-day Facebook Live because I could just go on and on and on listing different examples of incredible actions that have been going on across the country. Of course, there were 3 really dramatic votes last night that kind of sealed the deal on this thing, but that's all the result of a national political climate that really made it possible for us to get the result that we got. So I want to list off as many as I could fit on a couple of Post-it notes, starting with our Indivisible groups in Arizona, Indivisible Tucson, Indivisible Southern Arizona, Indivisible Surprise. Y'all were out in temperatures over 120 degrees protesting over and over and over again. Really, really incredible stuff. Indivisible Northern Nevada led the charge with sit-ins when we had a wave of those across the country. Really impressed with Indivisible Birmingham that did 5 days of coordinated sit-ins in Alabama. 5 days, absolutely. Yeah, also really hot. The Steamy South in general really, really pulled out all of the stops for this one. And I really want to give some extra attention to them because you're making it possible for other progressives to find that sense of community and make themselves heard. So big shout out to Indivisible Birmingham for that. Over in West Virginia, Indivisible Wood County, Mountaineers for Progress, y'all have been ready to respond so quickly. We put out so many calls to folks in West Virginia, obviously being such a crucial state, and you guys have always been there. Florida, we had folks out in a tropical storm, literally with umbrellas, still bringing all of their banners and signs and holding their ground for hours. Really, really incredible. If a tropical storm couldn't stop you, I really can't think of anything else that would. In Mississippi, we heard that there were groups that went to district offices, and these were the first times that those staffers have ever seen protest or any kind of constituent action happening in their entire careers in those district offices. So really, really proud of Indivisible Mississippi for setting that precedent. Also want to give a shout out to some of our groups in blue states for participating when we put out the call for participating in our call tool to push folks to withhold consent. Indivisible Seattle definitely put in a lot of effort and made so many calls to folks in red states. I also want to give a special shout out to Indivisible Columbus District 3 for traveling over 400 miles to DC to do a sit-in person that we actually got to see. Really, really awesome. Senator Portman has been avoiding you all at home, and you wouldn't let that stop you. And we saw folks leading sit-ins in Colorado and in Arkansas and all over the country. Like I said, this could go on forever. And maybe we'll do an all-day one of these days. But I'm going to...
Can we make one thing clear? So I think it would be easy to look at the results of this and say that there were only 3 Senate Republicans who voted against it. Was my advocacy not worthwhile? No. This is not the story of us barely eking by. This is not the story of winning 1 vote. This is the story of nationwide advocates coming up standing together and changing what is politically possible. It was easier for us to fight on this bill because we weakened it every step of the way up until we faced this. It was easier for us to get these senators on board because every single Republican caucus meeting in the Senate started with, hey, is it happening in your state? It's happening in my state too. That changes it nationwide. Even if your senator voted the wrong way, you were changing what is possible politically at the national level.
Yeah, I totally want to echo that. I think the work that everybody did across the country, we were the folks who you were the folks who did the work to get the Democrats to withhold consent to begin with. This bill could have passed months ago. It could have been so much worse, but we stiffened the spines of those Democrats and continued to make sure that they did the right thing and held that line. And then across the country, as Ezra noted, all of these senators had to reckon with constituent pressure across the board at every level. You made this bill politically toxic, every single version of it that came up. And that means a lot. It means, number one, that we literally saved millions of lives. The worst version of this bill would have taken insurance from 32 million people. And that's an incredible feat. If you haven't stopped and thought about the fact that you're actually a lifesaver, nice work. You're like fireman. It's kind of amazing. I think the second piece to remember is that we made this bill so incredibly hard for them to pass. We cost them all of their political capital. Time and again, they crossed every political line. They disrupted the rules. They ignored every single signal that this was absolutely the wrong thing to be doing. These bills had 16% approval ratings. And yet still they kept pushing for 7 months and failed. Imagine how much harder it's going to be to turn to the next items on their agenda. And that's work that you did and you can own. It's only going to get harder for them. They can still do terrible things. We'll still have to fight them at every step of the way, but that's a huge victory in its own right. And then the last piece is that we emerge stronger from this. Everything that you've done, all of the calls that you made, all of the work that you did to reach out to people and to bring them together and to make these shows of force happen time and again, month after month, that was incredibly powerful. You're that much stronger. You have that many more skills. You have that many more new leaders and that many more new members who have just seen real, clear evidence that this works. Constituent power can get it done. And if we stand together, indivisible, we could win. Thank you so much for all the work that you did. And I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add.
Any questions or anything? Oh, we got a couple questions. Gonzalo.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to just come in here and ask them?
Sure.
Hi, everyone.
This is Gonzalo, policy manager. Also.
So we've got a couple of questions in the comments. The first one is, how do we thank Murkowski and Collins if we don't live in Alaska and Maine?
Well, so I'm gonna say two things, and one of them is going to be controversial. One of them is that obviously, if you know anybody in either of those states, you should call them and get them to call their representative. And then two, this might actually be one of the very few instances where they'd be okay with hearing from people not in their district, knowing that this was something. No, just kidding. But I mean, I do think that to the extent that you can, asking your senators to thank them. They value those political relationships too, can actually be really helpful as well. I obviously shouldn't answer.
Okay, this is a real question from Alfredo in the comments. I have a few extra bucks in my wallet. How do I make a donation to Indivisible Guys? He actually asked.
I love that plan. What a great question. We love that. So I will say, although you might think this is like a really fancy setup, we are literally talking to you through an iPhone balanced on a trash can. That is what I'm looking at, and it's working quite well. We are small dollar funded. We make the most of every single dollar that comes into us. And that means that the single largest source of funds we get are small dollar funds. So if you go to indivisible.org, you click the donate button, you'll be joining tens of thousands of people from all across the country who have donated to us. We get $5 donations or $10 donations. That's what's fueling us. So if you want to donate, that's awesome. We love it. We'll take more, as Isaac said. And that helps us. Fundamentally, though, the best thing you can do to help this movement grow is to get active on your home turf. Join your local group. Start attending meetings. Do these actions. We would love funds from you to keep on helping out, but this is also built by your blood, sweat, and tears. So you getting out there is the best possible thing you can do. Anything else?
Yeah. One quick thing to add about that. There are people who I'm thinking actually specifically of my wife who we have 2 kids and she's in school and just doesn't have time to get out to meetings. But Giving money is something that she can do. Making phone calls is something that she can do. And we're working to buy tools to continue to expand the ways that folks who can't come to a meeting can get involved. So go to a meeting, join your local group. But if you can't do that, contributing money is a great way to do it, and we're looking for more ways to get you involved as well.
Okay, and there's one final question here on the policy side. How do we stop Republicans from sabotaging the ACA?
So, you want to?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we can both answer this. So this is an important point to make, and that's that even though we won last night, the fight isn't over. One of the biggest dangers is that Trump and Republicans have been doing this for years. They're trying to sabotage the ACA, and that's not going to stop. You've heard what Trump has said in Twitter, that's let the ACA collapse, and then we can do something about this. The ACA is not collapsing. It's only being harmed by the sabotage that these Republicans and the Trump administration, the things that they're doing. For example, CSR payments. There are subsidies that make health insurance affordable. They are holding them hostage every month as a way of trying to put pressure on Democrats to come to the negotiating table and to basically just sabotage the ACA. And it's driving premiums up. It's one of the things that is harming consumers across the country. That's just one of the ways that Republicans and Trump are trying to sabotage this. There are in the next phase of this is trying to make sure that healthcare, that we improve healthcare, and there are a number of ways that we can do this. There are, for example, one of the things that a lot of groups have been talking about is, one thing that we saw during this fight is that the states that expanded Medicaid are the ones that were hardest to try to get them to vote. The senators that were hardest to try to convince to vote for this. One of the next steps, I think, is to try to expand Medicaid in as many states as possible to make sure that we protect health care. There are a lot of other technical things that I'll let Chad here talk about. Put him on the spot.
All right, sure. All right. Okay, so what have you left me at this point to talk about Angel? So the one thing I'll add to Angel's point about the cost-sharing reduction payments is that this is specifically what insurance companies are saying is making them leave the marketplaces. The uncertainty brought about by Trump holding them hostage is what's either making them price their prices much higher or just leave altogether. The other thing the Trump administration is doing, just last week, they canceled the call center contracts in 18 different cities. So these are call centers where you're trying to sign up for a marketplace plan, you can get help. There's 18 fewer call centers now at this point, or there will be. So that's the kind of stuff that we have to guard against. In terms of what we can do right now legislatively, bringing certainty to those cost-sharing reduction payments, that would resolve a lot of the uncertainty that issuers are saying is making them leave. We can also do stuff around reinsurance and then make sure that also the public outreach continues so that people know about plans and they're signing up and they know how to do it.
So just one thing. It can get really technical. I mean, it's hard. I mean, over the last few days with all these amendments that people were trying to offer and try to understand this, and I'm sure for a lot of you, it's just healthcare is a complicated thing. But the bottom line is that there are things that Democrats and Republicans can do very easily to make healthcare more affordable and accessible to more Americans. And it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. And I need to hear from you to make that possible.
So can I'm just closing out, although anybody else can say, please.
I just want to. I actually just want to give a shout to our groups that live in the Trump Care 10 states.
Oh God.
We have given them 5 weeks worth of daily call scripts, and they are the most popular resources on our website. Mm-hmm. So you guys have been calling every day for 5 weeks about a different topic each day. We put those scripts up, but you're the ones that turn that information into power. So thanks for using them, and obviously you can tell it had a huge effect.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm closing out with 4 things you can do right now, literally right now. 1, share this video that's live streaming right now. You've got hundreds or thousands of friends on Facebook. They need to know about Indivisible and the Resistance Broadly. They should join. You can literally click share to your friends. Boom. You're getting more people in on the movement. 2, go to indivisibleguide.com or go to indivisible.org. We actually have that URL, indivisible.org. You can sign up for updates. We send regular updates. You want to know what's happening on the Hill, if you want to know where the resistance is and how you can take action, it takes 2 seconds. Sign up for it and you'll start getting our emails. 3, you can donate some money. That'd be great. Donate $5, $10, $15. That's how we're fueling ourselves. That's easy. Indivisible.org to do it. And the 4th is on Monday at 8:30 p.m. We're going to be doing one of our more traditional Facebook Lives where we'll answer questions about what exactly happened and where we are going. So we'll get into a few more of these nitty-gritty details on what happens next with Trump Care, what's happening with the budget fight or the tax reform. But this weekend, number 5, this is a bonus. Celebrate. You should celebrate. This is huge. You've accomplished amazing things. We're going to be celebrating for sure, and then we're going to be getting back to work on Monday.
I'll add one last thing. All around the country this weekend, there are rallies for our lives, which are rallies to keep this issue on the radar, keep Republicans aware that this is not going away. So do you guys have the website for that? So we'll share the URL for that in our emails and on the Facebook Live if there's one in your town. If you just go ahead and turn out for that. One last push to get over the finish line and help everyone realize that this issue is not going away. All right, great. And then I just want to close with one.
There we go.
I just want to close with one last note. When we first wrote the Indivisible Guide and put it online back in December of 2016, we were years ago. It feels like years ago. It was a really dark and scary time for all of us, and we were really blown away when we put it online and we started getting emails from people. And the thing that they said over and over again was that reading the guide and getting organized made them feel hope. And we didn't write the guide to tell people that they should have hope. We wrote the guide to tell people that they have power. And you guys have shown over the last 6 months that you have power every day. And I hope that you feel that power today. I hope you feel that sense of community today. I hope you are excited about where we can go together.
I'm getting teary-eyed here. This is great. Yeah.